Hello and welcome to today's webinar in partnership with Ahlstrom, hosted by Packaging Europe. In today's webinar, we'll delve into how to make confectionery packaging more sustainable with paper. My name is Elisabeth Skoda. I'm the editor-at-large here at Packaging Europe. For those of you unfamiliar with Packaging Europe, we are the leading intelligence resource for packaging professionals around the world, via our website, as well as online and in-person events such as the Sustainability Awards and the Sustainable Packaging Summit, which will take place in just under 3 weeks from November 10th to November 12th in Utrecht in the Netherlands. We deliver daily news content, authoritative comment and analysis, case studies, and high-profile interviews with leading industry players. And we enable communication across the packaging value chain. So I'm very pleased to welcome our speakers today. I'd like to welcome Rafael Yamamoto, who is Head of Innovation for Global Food Packaging at Ahlstrom. We also have Rafaela Premonte, who is Channel Manager for Business Development Food Packaging at Ahlstrom. And last but definitely not least, we have Natasha Cholton, who is Head of Product Sustainability at the company. So today we are asking the question, can paper truly replace plastics in confectionery packaging? And the confectionery market has been undergoing a significant transformation as brands shift towards more sustainable packaging solutions. And with increasing regulatory pressures, along with growing consumer demand for eco-friendly products, paper-based packaging is becoming a leading alternative to traditional plastics. In this webinar, we'll explore the concept of paperization in confectionery packaging. And obviously, paperization is the shift from plastics to paper materials designed to meet strict performance, sustainability, and regulatory requirements. And you'll discover how Ahlstrom, a global leader in specialty papers, develops recyclable solutions that combine barrier protections with reliable runnability on packaging lines. Our expert speakers will guide you through the technical challenges specific to confectionery packaging, urges protect product freshness and appeal while ensuring recyclability and compliance with evolving legislation. They'll also show how Ahlstrom's innovation, from today's trusted grades to tomorrow's breakthrough solutions, support confectionery brands in reducing plastic use, securing cost efficiency, and enhancing consumer trust. So before I hand over to speakers, just a few housekeeping tips. There are about 15 minutes at the end of this webinar reserved for a Q&A. And using the chat facility, please post your questions there and I'll put them to the speakers at the end of the session. You can obviously do that throughout the entire webinar and I'll try to get as many of your questions answered as possible. But if we don't get round to your question, I'm sure the team will be happy to get back to you anyway. For any technical questions, please select the support button, which you'll see on the left-hand side of your screen. So without further ado now, I'd like to hand over to Rafaela to get us started with her presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Elisabeth. And thanks everyone to joining our session today. Before we get into the details of the confectionery and packaging, let me share a little story about who we are in Ahlstrom. So we are a global leader in fiber-based specialty material. We are a community of around 7,000 people, over 54 nationalities, working across more than 13 countries. Every day, more than 6,000 customers in hundreds of countries rely on our solution. From your morning coffee filter to the medical device that keep people safe, or definitely on the packaging that protect your snack. This is really what we are focusing on. We are headquartered in Finland, in Helsinki, to be precise. But our story, let's say, it really span the world. We had a global footprint, and as you can see, we go from US to Asia. And always across all the countries with the same purpose, meaning to lead the transition towards a more sustainable world. We have to say that we are proud that our efforts has been, in a certain sense, recognized, because Ahlstrom holds an EcoVadis Platinum rating, meaning that it's placing us among the top 1% of companies globally for sustainability performance. And as well, we have a CDP climate leadership score of A-, recognizing our action on climate. But achievements are just one part of the story. What I would say truly matters in Ahlstrom are our commitment. So looking ahead, our climate targets are verified by the Science Based Target Initiative, meaning that we are aligning our action with the 1.5 degrees Celsius pathway. And we stand firmly behind the UN Global Compact principle. Last but not least, through our collaboration with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, we are helping drive the shift towards, I would say, a more sustainable global economy. We can say that in a certain sense, sustainability gives us our purpose, but it's really innovation that turns that purpose into progress. And as you can see, what we share is that in Ahlstrom, innovation is really at the heart of everything we do. It's how we turn challenges into solutions. And to do that, we have 2 dedicated research centers, about 200 R&D experts globally, 12 product development teams that translate ideas into market-ready solutions. To test and, of course, validate, we use 4 pilot lines that are covering from fibers to papers and coating. And our work is organized around 3 technological platforms that guide where we want to invest and scale. I can say that the result speaks volume. We have almost 600 patents granted and more than 200 in progress. And we believe this is really proof of consistency. I would also share that we don't innovate alone. There are 7 multi-partners collaborations that help us to move faster and smarter. This is what I think is strong. Now that we have talked really about how relevant is innovation and how is at the heart of what we do, let me share very briefly where really the place where really everything comes to life in a certain sense. This is our food and consumer packaging division. Here, our mission is very clear. We want to develop solutions that improve food safety, extend the product shelf life, overall protect human health. But our ambition goes even further. We are determined to lead the transition away from single-use plastic, that we talk about a market of around $10 billion in 2025, towards a more sustainable packaging solution. And we do that how? We plan to leverage through new barrier technology and high-performance materials, just to mention a few. So now that we've just tried to give you a flavor about who we are, let's move really to the next part of the session. I would just share briefly what we mean by confectionery today. So when we talk about confectionery across all presentation, we cover sugar confectionery, meaning candies, lollipops, gum, chocolate, of course, that's the basis, from bars to pralines, biscuit and cookies, sweet, savory, and of course, ice cream. With that in mind, I think we can just now go a bit more in details about the role of packaging and how the packaging is really driving a lot of developments in this category. It's clear, even if my colleagues later will go deeply, I would just to give you in a nutshell that packaging is so much more than a wrapping now. It's performance, definitely it's personality, it's protection, but it's really brand identity. And every category we have seen as dedicated needs. For candies and gums, just to give you a few examples, it has to be lightweight, portionable, still keeping, of course, the brand identity behind. When it comes to biscuit and cookies, the challenge is about freshness and crunchiness and barrier performance. And what we have seen, for example, this has to go hand in hand with recyclability and fiber-based design. Ice cream, different story. Here, really, the big challenge is the cold chain. It needs to be durable, grease resistant, and reliable at low temperature. And finally, savory snack. These are rich in fat and oil. They demand definitely advanced solution that now can be, I would say, recyclable or even fiber-based. So just to share that for us, I mean, in Ahlstrom, we have seen that packaging play a crucial role, specifically in this category. And packaging, for packaging, I mean, definitely it's not true that one size fits all at all, because we have to balance many different things. Now, allow me to zoom a bit out, I would say, so to take a big picture about what really is shaping today the confectionery and the snack market today. So what's really happening and what are the main trends? In one single word, we can say that snack market, confectionery, is still booming, even in mature market. It's not anymore an occasional treat, is, I would say, an everyday habit. To give you a kind of, I mean, a few information, what we have seen is that the global market is massive, is around $500 billion, with USA owning more than 50% alone. What, for example, for me is interesting that Europe leads innovation, with 40% all the new product launches worldwide in the last year. And when it comes to favorites, chocolate definitely rules in Europe with 40% of the market, while in North America, in the US, savory snacks are really stealing the spotlight with a bit more than 40%. When it comes to packaging, the story gets maybe even more interesting, because in Europe, flexible packaging dominates. It's covering above half of all the sweet product. But in America, in North America, the picture flips. So only really 1 out of 4 of sweet are flexible packaging, while rigid plastics definitely lead the game. So I would say that confectionery would never stop evolving. And about evolution, just let me share a few trends that we have noticed and we have, of course, analyzed in Ahlstrom. From product perspective, we quote, of course, the top 5. So from the first one, the first big trend is about better for you. Here, let's say that health and indulgence are really finally learning to coexist. Just to give a number, in Italy, more than 70% of consumers say that they want natural ingredients for their gum and their candies. So yes, we want our chocolate to be plant-based or protein-rich, but still have to taste like real chocolate, like clear happiness. The next one is bold flavor. Here, what I mean. People are looking for adventure. In UK, half of all consumers say they've tried an unexpected combination, such as spicy chocolate or crunchy caramel. So here, definitely, the key word is crunchy and chunky and surprising. Then we move to the third one, seasonal and viral trends. Those kind of, let's say, limited edition that make us say, I don't need it, but I have to try it. So considering that 70% of US shoppers, so 70%, buy seasonal confectionery, not just for the taste, but for the story behind the excitement that it brings. And just because I put on the screen, anyone heard about Dubai style chocolate, or the last one, angel hair? So these are definitely trends that are here to stay. And of course, next one is transparency and ethics. So these are definitely non-negotiable. So people read the labels. They want to know the story behind everything they eat. And finally, premium indulgence. I think this is easy to understand. So at the end, every one of us deserves this kind of piece of everyday luxury, as generally chocolate has been considered. And what's happening, moving instead to packaging trend. So what is really the story behind? Here, definitely, we have sustainability. That's too easy. What we have seen is that if your pack is not recyclable, compostable, or shouting plastic-free, it's basically invisible. Consider that 40% of the new launches in the last year already use at least recyclable claims. It's a sort of new packaging statement. The next one is smart interactive, so QR code, freshness sensor. In this sense, packaging starts sharing a sort of story for the brand. And then we have lightweighting and downsizing. I call this like packaging on a diet, because here we focus on less material, less waste, same protection, more efficiency. We move on. What I really find interesting as well for our company, for Ahlstrom, is high barrier fiber wraps. And I consider this as a sort of new heroes because they have to really focus on moisture, grease, and aroma while keeping the sustainability value. And finally, transparent storytelling. So exactly as we have seen for the product, also in the packaging trend, consumers want to see what are the value behind the brand. So packaging today is just anymore a wrapper. It's a communicator. Is a brand ambassador. It can really speak to the brand and to the company that is producing. And speaking about sustainability, this is exactly where really we go deeper and the story deepens. So let me pass over to Natasha, who will take us further into really how sustainability is shaping every layer of packaging, so from material to impact.
Thank you, Raffaella, and thank you everyone for joining. So let's focus on packaging sustainability. And first of all, we take a look at the sustainability legislation perspective, because we see that packaging regulations tend to reduce plastic waste, and they are also influencing confectionery packaging choices. We have the EU Single-Use Plastics Directive, which impacts plastic products, where a plastic-free solution that is out of the scope and its requirements are becoming more popular. We also have the packaging and packaging waste regulation that now mandates 100% of packaging to be recyclable, reusable, or compostable by 2030. And it also requires packaging to be designed for recyclability under harmonized guidelines. We don't know what they are yet, but that will be a positive change. It also introduces reduction targets, promotes bio-based and paper-based alternatives. And of course, it also strengthens the existing extended producer responsibility, shifting the packaging waste management cost to the packaging producers. If we also think about the economic and policy influences, taxation has an impact. Some member states are increasing taxes on plastic-based materials, which accelerates that shift to fiber-based solutions. More and more investors and markets are expecting that companies have their corporate sustainability commitments, but also that they have that more sustainable offering, including recyclable solutions in their portfolio. And we see that this generates more interest and is perceived as more valuable. And coming back to extended producer responsibility, this is the policy framework that shifts that financial burden away from local governments and to the producers of packaging. And this is something that aligns well with what consumers are expecting. WWF did a study that showed that 68% of Americans believe companies which produce plastic should be responsible for its collection, sorting, and recycling. And an EPR system in the US has the potential to bring that much needed funding and efficiency to recycling. It can also incentivize packaging producers to design packaging that's recyclable, reusable, and also minimizing the environmental impact of the product. It's once thought that this type of scheme is something that US brand owners would wouldn't really buy into due to the cost, but we're now seeing that 9 states have introduced or plan to introduce EPR legislation. Those include California, Colorado, Hawaii, Maryland, New Hampshire, New York, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington. And we hope that a coordinated approach will be more effective than individual state approaches. As you know, EPR has been active in the EU for a very long time, and these new developments towards harmonized eco-modulation to tie the cost to recyclability is a development that we see should support the recycling target of 85% of recycling for paper and cardboard by 2030. And coming back to the sustainability trends specific to confectionery and the snacks market, as Rafaela said, we see that growing demand for sustainable packaging. Consumers are increasingly demanding lightweight and sustainable packaging in the confectionery sector. Paper and bio-based packaging is gaining traction, especially in Europe. And there are also an increasing number of green claims for products with sustainable and recyclable packaging. Consumers increasingly have that preference for sustainable products whilst having reduced packaging waste. However, there is no single most sustainable packaging structure or material. Every packaging format and material exhibits some positive sustainability attributes. And equally, certain formats and materials may exhibit less positive attributes when compared to others. As an example, clear glass can be infinitely recycled without losing inherent properties, but it's energy intensive to produce and heavy to transport. Flexible packaging, on the other hand, is in general not being recycled, but it is lightweight to transport. Whereas aluminium is highly collected for recycling, but the process to extract the original raw materials can be quite intense and destructive. And a liquid carton may be produced using sustainably managed forest materials, but maybe carton recycling isn't available in certain regions of the world. So for reasons similar to these, no structure or material can definitively claim most sustainable status, and we know that comparative claims have to be carefully calculated and validated. And with that being said, I would like to show you the work that we're doing at Ahlstrom. And our approach to sustainability is really focused on making our solutions safe and sustainable by design, and that's really at the heart of how we integrate sustainability into our products and business, ensuring that we meet those market demands and customer expectations. Our approach takes a holistic view of the whole life cycle of the products that we assess against our safe and sustainable by design assessment. So we score each product that we have against different sustainable and safe chemical criteria. And this includes looking at the plant performance, where we produce the product, the composition of raw materials, what end of life is possible, but it's also the use phase of the product. It does bring sustainability benefits in terms of performance, or is it serving a need in the market in terms of sustainability trends like plastic replacement or being ahead of legislation? And finally, we also consider what chemicals we use, both from a carbon footprint perspective, as well as hazardous chemicals and green chemicals and how they're being used. So here's what it really means in action beyond the theory and how we drive impact. We can start by improving our existing products, taking into account any requirements and specifications from our customers, of course. And in this phase, we investigate options of raw materials, collaborating with suppliers, and how we can optimize that value chain. Our second area where we can drive that impact is innovating new products. So they go through the same assessment we can use LCA as a tool to make the right design choices. And finally, leaning on the R&D capabilities that we have enables us to look for new materials and technologies, both from a process innovation and new technology perspective, to ensure that we're meeting our standards. And finally, we see that fiber-based materials have an inherently strong sustainability value proposition with their features. They also deliver well on their look and feel in the interaction with consumers. We see that paper-based films can offer easy opening, reclosing, and dispensing, whilst that material has the transparency, high gloss, other decorative effects. We also know that paper-based flexible packaging needs to be compatible with existing equipment due to higher stiffness and resistance. But it's also important to consider the cost in the overall business case, considering the raw materials, energy, transportation, and so on. And as strongly as fiber-based materials perform from a sustainability perspective, there are also challenges for product protection and barriers, which is really the key to ensure that product performance. And here I would like to hand over to Rafael, who will talk more about this challenge and how to overcome it.
Thanks a lot, Natasha. Thanks a lot, everyone, for your presence here in our webinar. Really, the idea now is for us to start to talk a little bit more about packaging requirements and how Ahlstrom is currently addressing this specific topic. I have to say that it's not an easy task, that's for sure, and I am quite convinced that most of you acknowledge this challenge that we have in front of us, challenges that might be correlated to the points that Natasha just pointed out, correlated to sustainability, food regulations overall, but also from time to time challenge to clearly understand the specifications that we need to achieve at the end of the day. This is something that it might be related to different end use, different product ingredients that the brands might be using, shelf life, the customer way to approach this in the market, and regions that also from time to time might be a very important source of elements. But here, really, the idea is try to navigate on those topics, not being definitive in the statements that we're going to be placing, but for sure trying to enlighten our discussions with some assessment that we did in the past years correlated to the confectionery market. So I believe that Natasha already talked a little bit about, let's say, the key properties that we have for flexible packaging overall, for confectionery specifically. No doubt that the protection that we need to give with a paper structure, it's, I would say, one of the most challenging one. We know that in most of the applications, we need a high degree of moisture and vapor barrier, oxygen barrier, grease resistance. In some applications, it's also quite well needed as like light protection. But naturally, we cannot forget to be attentive also to characteristics and the specifications that might be more linked to the maintainability of our product in the full process. It might be the process of our converting partners. It might be also the process of the packaging lines in the big brands. So in this specific case, we can list twist and folding as a key element to be taken in consideration. Shear tensile strain for most of the applications is also quite relevant because we are talking about a high-speed machine, package machines that we might find in the market. Sealability. In our case specifically, we tend to focus a little bit more in heat sealability when it comes to solutions that we can present from our side, but no doubt that there are other types of sealability, like cold seal, that normally is taking place via the converters and our partners. Flexibility, conformability, it's also quite relevant when it comes to mechanical and functional properties. Everything really look for achieve at the end of the day and a proper protection that can cope with shelf life that's placed for each one of the products that we will be talking a little bit more going forward. I will not spend too much time in the sustainability and regulatory compliance because it was already something that Natasha covered quite well. And Rafaela was also talking at the beginning about the presentation. At the end of the day, packaging, it's really the way that the brand will present itself in the shelf lives, in the shelves in the supermarket. So that's why it's quite important for us to assure that we can present premium printability based on a high smoothness paper, surface paper that we can give to the market. Going a little bit forward, we will talk about some different confectionery categories. The idea here, as I said, it's not really to be definitive in the requirements that we have in front of us, because we acknowledge the fact that this might be differing from case by case specifically, but we try at least to give a more broad overview based on our internal assessments to give an overview of mainstreams, let's say, products and brands that we can find in the supermarket. We can start with chocolate, and no doubt that chocolate, it's one of the categories that have been in front of all our main, let's say, developments and expectations in the past years. It's a very important spotlight for the brands, and many actions were taken in the past years in that relation. But I have also to admit that in most of the case, when it comes to fiber-based materials, in most of the case, it's more concentrating niche brands, niche markets, because it's quite complex as an application to be going more broad in the mainstream products. When it comes to the level of protection barrier, we do understand that there is a very important oxygen barrier attribute that's needed as the grease resistance, since we are talking about a very grease product overall. Light protection, it's also something that we would like to highlight. And when it comes to sealability, we normally talk about cold sealing in this specific case. Going to the next category, we can talk a little bit more about candies. Here we are separating a bit hard and soft candies, but overall we do understand that there are some requirements that are quite well aligned. When it comes to candies, you might have wrapped candies, but also you might have a twist wrap type of conversions. In this specific case, foldability and twistability, it's really quite key for the process inside the packaging lines. And one of the most, let's say, important attributes that we might have in candies overall, and also gums, it's the release properties, because at the end of the day, obviously we do not want our candies to be stick to the paper before we consume it. So quite relevant point of attention. And as I was commenting, by foldability and twistability, we do really understand that the mechanical properties, it's quite relevant for us to take here in consideration. For soft candies, well, not much to be added. From time to time, it's a matter of additional barrier that we might have comparing with hard candies. But here, at the end of the day, really, the most important attributes that we need to look is like in the case of hard candies, the release and the mechanical properties. When it comes to guns, here we need to share a little bit the attention between the primary and the secondary packaging. For primary packaging, normally we are talking about thin paper with some coating layer to give the release property, but it tends to be a simpler solution. The point that we would like to dedicate a little bit more time here, it's more correlated to the secondary packaging where the need of barriers, main moisture barrier, might be relevant for the final application. So in many cases here, the brands use laminate structures with aluminum paper and some plastic material as lamination structure, and this obviously we have some quite nice opportunities eventually to bring barrier paper as solution and a recyclable and sustainable solution to be presented to the market. And in the sequence, we go for cookies, biscuits, and wafer. Here we are really talking about grease products overall, and in this specific case, grease resistance tends to be one of the most relevant attributes that we need to bring. Mainly, if we talk about the trays that might come inside the biscuit package to protect the biscuit overall and to give some stiffness in structure to the final packaging. But when it comes to the wraps, the throw wraps that you might have to accommodate the biscuits, in this specific case also there are some barrier requirements that need to be careful worked on in order to give the proper protection to the shelf life that tends to be close to 1 year in this specific case. And the last category that we are here talking about, it's about snack bars. Snack bars, it's a quite let's say, quite very category, meaning that there is a lot of different requirements that might come from different brands or different type of products. But we do understand that, yes, there is some very important requirements correlated to moisture vapor barrier in this case. Wrapping up this first assessment, as I said, and not aiming to be definitive, but at least giving us an initial overview of everything that we can eventually tackle as packaging going forward. We would like also to talk a bit about our solutions that might be placed to those packaging categories inside confectionery. And in this list, the first product that I can present, introduce to you, it's our Lambac Flex range of products. In this specific case, we are talking about a base paper that has a very smooth surface, and it's quite appropriate for the best performance in lamination and metallization. In this case specifically, we do acknowledge the fact that it's truly important, the presence of our customers and partners in this process to give the maximum the barrier levels required for some of the categories that we are talking about. And we do see Lambac Flex with the proper barrier going quite well in chocolate, in snack bars, and also in cookies and wafer. Rocalond, it's our line of products for candies, mainly with a very good attribute that comes with the twistability and the foldability that I was just talking before. So really, in this specific case, we are talking about hard candy and soft candy mainly, but in some specific case also, it might go for chocolates and gums. Crystal is the third line here. It's our reference when it comes to transparent paper. So it's really benchmark currently in the market. And this transparency can bring additional benefits for categories like chocolate, candies, for sure gums, and also snack bars. Going next, we have the line of Coral. Coral, it's a product that it's well used in many categories, as we can see in the list below. But we have a very good presence in the chocolate market, mainly with some products that it's colored in a way that can give really a very nice presentation to the end product in the shelf. And the last group of products that I will present a little bit more into the detail is our product line Grease Guard Liner, specifically for biscuit and cookies application. So let me go a little bit more into detail about this new product line. And I have to say that the Grease Guard line, it's our line for grease resistance paper, grease resistance PFAS-free paper. So, and this is quite important we remind to be made, because in the past years we face a lot of challenges correlated to the transition from PFAS materials to PFAS-free grease resistance paper, because at the end of the day, the level of performance, it's not exactly the same. And when we have some difference, obviously we need to work quite close with our partners to try to understand, obviously, how to deliver at the end of the day the same level of protection desired. And biscuits, cookies is one of the application that it's quite well demanding when it comes to performance, because it's not just a matter of grease resistance. Here we are also talking a lot about convertibility of the material, because mainly we are talking about fluting process that will be used, as like we can see in the picture, in the protection of the biscuit inside the packaging, inside the packages. So why Grease Guard Liner for confectionery? This is something that we have been discussing a lot with the partners. It's really something that we develop in a sense ad hoc to deliver this excellent gluability in the microfluting process, to deliver also superior grease and oil resistance, to accommodate a range of base weight, because from time to time we understand that customers might use different structures based on the level of protection that's needed. And naturally, as like Natasha was commenting, everything that nowadays that we develop and we think about need to be recyclable according set protocol. And at the end of the day, everything to be obviously bring us to this possibility to supply the material for cookie packaging, chocolate box, cushion pads, corrugated sleeves for biscuits, and bread and pastry packaging. So really, a good set of categories that requires, as I said, grease resistance, but also on a paper that convert quite well in the conversion lines. In the past years also, we learned a lot about the need for us to build a knowledge in the final application, not only build knowledge and assessments based on ISO or TAP standards. So this is something that we have been working a lot in this biscuit case to try to replicate and mimic the conditions that we have in the shelves in the transportation in a way that we could measure performance of the product before we present it to our customers. So we have been evaluating a lot different papers in different conditions, and here really the idea is to try to bring or to anticipate performance by doing tests where we can clearly see, for example, fat stains that might be presented in the paper. So it can be run in a 30 days assessments, but even more important, and these we have been developing in the past years, it's really to try to accelerate those processes, not to be too much dependent on timing to be assessing a material that we have in front of us, and really trying to replicate what would be the conditions that we have, for example, in a 1-year storage. So here specifically, we are talking about in a harsh condition inside the climatic chamber, really to try to bring this acceleration on what we could perceive on fat migration to the paper specifically. So we place, in this specific case, papers in a climatic chamber in a 55 degrees Celsius and 50% relatively humidity during 10 days, really to push the boundaries to try to understand if the paper that we are presenting to the market, it's really good enough for the purpose that it's needed. And in this specific case for the biscuit market, we were talking about not only about the grease resistance or the grease barrier that we can provide, but for sure it's also a matter of appearance and how eventually the grease might penetrate in the paper, staining the material and being appeared to consumers not in a good shape. So really the fat staining here, it was quite relevant for us to assess and to measure before we could present those solutions to our customers. And this is something that is currently happening basically in most of the new applications that we are trying to develop solutions, really to anticipate the need by doing real life case application testing and sharing these results with our partners. And we are getting close to the end, but really the last slide here that I would like to share with all of you, it's a kind of spoiler, I would have to say, because we are now really preparing the commercial launch of a new product that will present to the market beginning of next year. Here specifically, we are talking about a paper that will bring very good smooth surface for the printing works, that will also come with moisture vapor barrier and heat sealability already proved in packaging lines. And this is more or less aligned with what I was commenting before, so how we can anticipate ourselves to potential needs that will come from our partners and brands correlated to the performance that we need to deliver. And also, as like I said, in the case of biscuit, specifically recyclable according SEP protocol. This it's something that we do believe that might find a good space in the market, but does for sure not block any one of the current activities that we have, for example, in our Lumbac Flex line that we have with our customers and converters, because at the end of the day, we do strongly believe that the different categories and different end use will require also different levels of barrier, and we do not expect that here we will have some kind of conflict with the developments that we tend to do with partners for ultra high barrier that might come with metallization, that might come with lamination, or eventually others. For this functional barrier paper, we are really talking about a kind of broad range of categories and end use, but I would say that snack bars, protein shakes, tin envelopes are the ones that we will be for sure prioritize. And as I said previously, it was tested in a packaging manufacturer partner that we have. It was tested in pillow bags and sachet types of packages with very good sealing properties, but also protection properties that we're going to be present much more into the detail beginning of next year. So, as a wrap-up of everything that basically we talk about, I just would like to say that we do strongly believe that confectionery market, it's in a market to be, at least for us, as a paper company. The trends are quite positive, and there is a very strong demand coming to the market for fiber-based solutions. There is a great variety of different categories that we can play around. No doubt that all the regulatory and sustainability topics will be quite well in the top of our agenda. And as I said, the packaging requirements, it's not simple task to be defined from time to time, but we are more than open to collaborate with our customers, with our partners and brands in order to define and to achieve, let's say, a best solution that can provide protection to your product at the end of the day. Said that, I would like to hand over now the speech to Elizabeth, because most probably we're gonna run now on a Q&A.
Yes, you're absolutely correct, Raphael. Thank you very much for your really interesting presentation, and also thank you very much to Raphael and Natasha for sharing your insights. Yeah, now it's time for the Q&A section of the session. We've already had lots of great questions come through, but obviously please continue to send them in. If we don't get to all of your questions, I'm sure the team will be happy to get back to you on your questions anyway. So let's start with a question about the PPWR. Somebody's asking, how are you supporting your customers in complying with the PPWR?
Oh, I can take that one. So first of all, it's our job and responsibility to have a PPWR ready portfolio. So our offering needs to be compliant. First of all, we have these requirements when we also develop new products. But really what we do with our customers is sharing that knowledge that we have. But we have in-house recyclability testing. So if our customers need to adjust their composition, we can work with them to recyclability test. And by the way, we do use the SUPD protocol for all testing of both our products and our customers. But yes, I think there was also a question about a challenge, and I think this is very technical, so it's extremely important that we see the delegated acts end up at the right level.
Great, thank you, Natasha. Yeah, somebody else asked us, how would you define high barrier fiber? If it is paper-based, then surely it will need a barrier, which will make it multi-layer and then starts reducing the recyclability.
Yes, I can take that. We, as I was saying at the end of the presentation, we might have different layers of barrier that might go for different end users, and no doubt that if we are trying to achieve barrier with paper and coating, we might not be achieving same levels of barrier that eventually we could be getting with metallization, with lamination. So this is the part that I think that's quite important to make clear, that we strongly feel that there is space for everyone in these developments. And we are taking at least in a part where we would like to provide the best base paper solution for converters that wants really to deliver ultra high barrier. And here I'm talking in a very broad let's say, sense, we are talking about below 1 gram per square meter per day in VTR and OTR, more or less in the same range. But we do also believe that in some cases we might have customers, brands, and applications that's a little bit less demanding. And by doing and applying coaching directly in our assets, that we could find some nice spots. And obviously, the levels of barrier in this case would not be this, let's say, ultra high, but good enough for some of the applications.
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you, Rafael. We have quite a technical question next. Somebody's asking, can you describe the ranges of MVTR and OTR for the 1 dot, 2 dots, and 3 dots rating that you have been showing?
Yeah, okay. So in this case specifically, I would say that the 3 dots we are looking, and obviously we have to create some kind of standards correlated to the conditions. For MVTR, I'm talking here about 23 Celsius and 85 relative humidity. In the case specifically of OTR, we are talking about 23 Celsius and 50. But for the 3 dots, we are really looking more below 5, I would say, something like that. For the 2 dots, we would be ranging more in the 20s, let's say. And we do believe that there is some possibilities that might come more for the 50s and 200. In this specific case, more for MVTR. OTR, eventually, it's a little bit different, a bit lower, both the 2 dots and the 1 dot.
Great, thank you, Rafael. We had another question in asking, will the newly developed paper be available in the EU and in the US as well?
The idea is to launch the paper in EU first, but we are already working in a solution that will be also produced in US, North America specifically. As paper maker, we need to say that we do not have paper machines that work exactly the same, so we need to be mindful about the difference that we have inside our assets. But yes, we do want to have solution available and produced locally, specifically.
Thank you, Rafael. And somebody else is asking us, what are the ranges you use to define low, moderate, high in packaging requirements, such like oxygen barriers, moisture resistance, and so on?
I believe that this, more or less, it was answered, Elizabeth, in the ranges that I commented previously.
Okay, perfect. Let's get rid of that. Oh yes, somebody else is asking us another question concerning barriers. What is the percentage of bio-based content in barrier coating in paper packaging? Is it already at a good competitive level versus plastics?
What I have to say is that, at least from our developments, we look for both paths, and we do not have a clear preference, meaning we might have coatings that's not necessarily bio-based, but it can work quite well in the barrier properties and still be totally compliant with packaging waste regulations, because at the end of the day, we will reach high standards of recyclability, and that's fine in most of the case. But we do acknowledge also from time to time, depending also on the market, that bio-based might be required. It's not necessarily an 100% correlation, but might be required because of the need of compostability as an end of life. So in this case, yes, we might take that direction, but it's not that much the case in Europe. So in Europe specifically, the targets that we are currently receiving, it's really quite well related to recyclability, and we still believe that a non-bio-based solution might be quite well suitable for those kind of applications.
Okay, thank you, Raphael. So I think we have time for another couple of questions before it's time to close off. We have a quite specific question. Somebody's asking, what is creating the grease and oil resistance in grease guard?
So for sure, unfortunately, it's not the PFAS in this specific case. This was the great challenge that we had in the past years. It's, I would say, a mix that we need to work on the paper by refining, and also in the treatment, in the coating. In this specific case, mindful about SUPD for sure, need to be a biosourced chemistry.
Great, thank you. And yes, one more final question. How are you going to protect high quality packaging or paper against cracking?
There is one point that might be correlated to the barrier, and we do acknowledge that when it comes to the barrier, cracking might be a challenge, because in many cases we are talking about coating, but really here we try to work in the flexibility of the coating to resist to folding in cracks. The other point might be correlated to the printability aspect, and for that, I feel that at least our solutions currently are quite convenient, because we do not have, at least in the presentation that we are doing, a coated paper that could suffer with cracking.
Great, thank you very much, Raphael. So yes, I'm afraid that's all we have time for today with regards to questions. But yeah, don't worry if we haven't got to your question. I'm sure the team will be happy to get back to you and answer to your question. So this webinar will be available on demand within the next couple of days, and you'll be sent a link to access it in case you want to recap on anything you've seen in today's sessions. So yeah, that just leaves me to once again thank our speakers today, Raffaella Premonte, Raphael Yamamoto, and Natasha Charlton. Thank you very much for sharing your insights, and thank you everybody for tuning in today. And yeah, goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.